If you found this video, access was not given to you by chance. Nothing placed this moment in front of you accidentally. This encounter is the result of a shift that has already taken place inside you, subtle enough that the mind may not have announced it, yet stable enough that reality could respond. Something in your internal state quieted. Something stopped pulling in opposite directions. And in that stilling, a threshold was crossed. There is a name sometimes used for this threshold, the Arcturian field. Not as a place, not as beings, not as something external granting permission, but as a way of describing a level of coherence that only becomes perceptible when internal noise drops below a certain point. Most people never stabilize long enough to touch it. Not because they are incapable, but because they are constantly leaking attention into the past or projecting it into the future. You are here because, even briefly, you stopped doing that. This is not about effort. Nothing was forced. You did not manifest this by wanting it, searching for it, or trying to become something more. The opposite happened. A layer of strain released. The nervous system softened just enough. The inner world became quieter, more gathered, more present. And when that happens, recognition replaces seeking. Reality does not open to those who chase it. It responds to those who become still enough to be seen. If you look honestly, you may notice that this did not arrive with drama. No fireworks. No overwhelming emotion. It likely felt more like a pause. A moment where the usual mental momentum slowed. A breath that went deeper without effort. A sense that something has been changing lately, even if you could not name what it was. That is how real shifts begin. They do not announce themselves. They stabilize first. Identity changes do not start with becoming someone new. They start with no longer being pulled by what you were. When that pull weakens, even slightly, awareness gathers back into the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where access exists. Not access to information, but access to clarity. Not access to power, but access to alignment. This is why recognition matters more than belief. You do not need to convince yourself of anything. You only need to notice what is already happening inside you. The fact that you are able to follow this, not just intellectually but with a quiet sense of familiarity, is not a sign of intelligence or knowledge. It is a sign of readiness. Readiness does not mean perfection. It means coherence. It means your internal state has reached a point where it can hold stillness without immediately escaping it. And when that happens, reality responds in kind. Nothing has been added to you. Nothing has been activated from the outside. What changed is that you became stable enough to recognize what was always available. This is why this moment could only occur now and not earlier. Other versions of you would have scrolled past. Other versions would have needed more noise, more stimulation, more explanation. This version did not. Stay with that. Not by clinging to it, but by allowing it. If you feel the quiet recognition settling in your chest as you read this, that is the signal stabilizing. And if you want to remain within this frequency, to continue exploring from this level of clarity rather than dropping back into distraction, stay connected to it. Subscribe and remain within this field of coherence. Nothing external is being activated here. No signal is being sent to you from outside. No permission is being granted by an unseen source. What is happening now is far simpler and far more precise. The shift occurs through recognition. The moment awareness recognizes itself becoming still, reality adjusts. Not because you asked it to, but because stability has appeared. Most people are conditioned to believe that change comes from addition. More information. More effort. More intention. More desire. But reality does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are able to hold without strain. Desire is noisy. Wanting pulls attention forward. Seeking fractures presence. Recognition does the opposite. Recognition gathers awareness back into itself. It stabilizes the signal. You may notice that nothing in you is trying to reach for something right now. There is no grasping. No pushing. No attempt to improve the moment. There is simply a quiet noticing. A sense of being here without commentary. That is the mechanism. Not belief. Not visualization. Not willpower. Presence recognizing itself as present. Reality is structured to respond to coherence. Coherence is not positivity. It is not emotional elevation. It is not excitement or inspiration. Coherence is when thought, emotion, and body stop pulling in different directions. Even briefly. When that happens, the signal you emit becomes clear. And clarity is readable. This is why effort so often fails. Effort implies instability. It implies that something is missing. It implies that the present moment is insufficient. Reality reflects that message precisely. When you try to become something else, you reinforce the signal that you are not yet here. And so reality keeps responding with delay, friction, and repetition. Recognition ends that loop. When you recognize stillness, you stop leaking energy into imagined futures or unresolved pasts. Attention returns to the only place where reality can respond, now. This is not a spiritual idea. It is a functional shift. The nervous system settles. The breath deepens without instruction. Awareness becomes less scattered. These are not effects. They are indicators that stabilization is occurring. It is important to see the difference between desire and readiness. Desire is mental. Readiness is embodied. You can want something for years without being ready to receive it. Readiness appears when the internal state can hold the outcome without collapsing. Reality waits for that condition. It does not negotiate with wishes. This is why recognition is enough. The moment you see clearly that nothing needs to be added, something fundamental relaxes. You stop asking reality to change and begin noticing how it already responds. Subtle shifts become visible. Timing sharpens. Encounters feel precise. Not because the world became magical, but because your perception became coherent. You are not learning something new here. You are remembering how reality has always worked. When your state stabilizes, the environment reorganizes. When you are fragmented, the world feels fragmented. When you are present, reality meets you at the same depth. This is not punishment or reward. It is mirroring. Stay with recognition, not as an action, but as a condition. Let the stillness be noticed without trying to preserve it. The more you allow it to be seen, the more stable it becomes. And the more stable it becomes, the more clearly reality responds. This is the mechanism. Nothing added. Nothing forced. Only what is stabilized becomes real. Every real shift begins before anything changes on the surface. It begins quietly, in the nervous system, long before the mind understands what is happening. This is why most transformations go unnoticed at first. They do not announce themselves with emotion or urgency. They arrive as subtle regulation. A softening. A pause where the usual inner momentum no longer dominates. You may have felt this recently without giving it meaning. Thought loops slowing down without effort. Reactions that once fired instantly now taking longer to form. A deeper breath appearing on its own. A sense of internal space where there used to be constant pressure. These are not symptoms of confusion or withdrawal. They are signs of reorganization. The nervous system is learning a new baseline. Before any visible change can occur, the body must feel safe enough to stop scanning for threats. When that happens, awareness no longer needs to fragment itself. Energy that was once used to brace, defend, or anticipate begins to return inward. This return feels like stillness, but not emptiness. It feels full, present, and alert without tension. Most people overlook this phase because it does not match their expectations. They are waiting for clarity to arrive as excitement, certainty, or motivation. Instead, it arrives as neutrality. As silence. As a sense that something old has lost its grip, even though nothing new has replaced it yet. The mind, trained to equate progress with movement, often labels this as stagnation and rushes to escape it. But this stillness is not a pause between actions. It is the condition that makes aligned action possible. When the nervous system settles, perception sharpens. You begin to notice what you previously ignored. Subtle discomfort becomes visible. Small misalignments stand out. Not to overwhelm you, but to be resolved through awareness rather than reaction. This phase is easy to miss because it does not feel productive. There is no dramatic insight to share. No story to tell. No clear identity to adopt. It feels like standing in a quiet room after years of noise, unsure at first what to do with the silence. Many people fill that silence immediately, returning to old habits, distractions, or explanations, because they mistake quiet for absence. In reality, this is the most sensitive phase of any transformation. The signal is stabilizing. Attention is no longer scattered across time. The body is no longer bracing against imagined futures or unresolved pasts. Awareness is learning how to remain present without effort. This learning cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. Those who move too quickly through this phase tend to recreate their old patterns in new forms. They mistake movement for change and carry the same internal state forward. Those who remain still long enough allow the foundation to reset. They do not rush to define what is happening. They let the nervous system finish reorganizing. If you find yourself less reactive, more observant, and less compelled to explain yourself, you are not losing momentum. You are entering alignment. This is why real shifts feel anticlimactic at first. The drama belonged to the old state. The new one is quiet because it no longer needs to prove itself. Stay with the stillness without trying to interpret it. Let it deepen on its own. What comes next does not require pushing. It will emerge from this regulated space naturally, precisely, and without resistance. Before going further, it is important to understand how reality actually responds. Not symbolically, not morally, and not through interpretation. What follows is not philosophy but mechanics. Reality does not listen to language, intention, or internal narration. It responds to state. And state is always being broadcast, whether you are aware of it or not. Reality reads you through the body first. Through the rhythm of your breath. Through the level of tension or openness in your nervous system. Through the density of emotion you are carrying beneath your thoughts. These elements combine into a signal that is far more honest than anything you say or think. Words are surface level. State is structural. And structure is what the field mirrors. When the breath is shallow and interrupted, it signals vigilance. When the body is tight, it signals defense. When emotional energy is dense and unacknowledged, it signals fragmentation. Reality responds to these conditions with experiences that feel heavy, delayed, or resistant. Not as punishment, but as correspondence. The mirror is simply accurate. When the breath deepens without effort, the signal changes. When the body softens enough to feel the present moment instead of bracing against it, coherence increases. When emotion is allowed to exist without being suppressed or dramatized, its density reduces. These shifts are subtle, but they are decisive. Reality responds to precision, not intensity. Honesty is the stabilizer. Not honesty as confession or exposure, but honesty with your internal state. When you stop pretending to feel better or worse than you actually do, the nervous system stops splitting itself. That split is what creates noise. When thought, emotion, and sensation align around what is actually present, the signal becomes clean. And a clean signal is immediately readable. This is why affirmations fail when they are disconnected from the body. You can repeat the right words while broadcasting fear. You can visualize success while holding contraction. Reality does not hear the affirmation. It hears the contraction. And it responds to that with precision. Not to oppose you, but to reflect what is dominant. You do not need to correct your thoughts to change your state. Thoughts follow state, not the other way around. Regulation leads. Presence leads. Allowing leads. The more you try to convince yourself, the more resistance you create. The more you allow yourself to feel exactly what is present without narrative, the faster the signal stabilizes. As this becomes clearer, you may notice reality responding in small but unmistakable ways. Timing sharpens. Encounters feel more exact. Decisions become easier without analysis. Not because the world changed, but because your state became readable. This is how alignment works. Quietly. Accurately. Without drama. If this recognition is landing for you, let yourself acknowledge it. Not mentally, but physically. A small nod. A breath. A moment of stillness. Even a simple action can anchor awareness. If you feel the truth of this settling in, hit the like button as a way of grounding that recognition. Not as approval, but as confirmation to yourself that something real is being seen. Reality will continue to respond to whatever you stabilize. You do not need to monitor it or manage it. Just notice what your body is broadcasting. The mirror never lies. Emotion is not an obstacle on your path. It is the path giving you feedback. Every emotional state you experience is information about alignment, not evidence that something has gone wrong. The confusion comes from being taught to treat emotion as something to fix, suppress, or transcend, rather than something to read. Emotion functions as direction. When you feel expansion, openness, relief, or quiet clarity, your internal state is aligned with the direction you are moving. When you feel contraction, tightness, heaviness, or agitation, something in your current orientation is misaligned. This does not mean you are failing. It means your system is communicating. Expansion does not always feel like joy. Often it feels neutral, steady, or calm. It feels like breathing becomes easier. Like there is space in the chest. Like you are no longer bracing. Contraction does not always feel dramatic either. It can be subtle resistance, low-level tension, or a sense of pressure without a clear cause. These signals are precise. They are not random moods. They are guidance. The problem arises when emotion is resisted. Suppression does not remove emotion. It densifies it. When you push emotion away, the nervous system splits, one part holding the feeling, another part trying to control it. This split creates noise in the signal. Reality responds to that fragmentation with confusion, repetition, and friction. Not because emotion is bad, but because distortion has entered the system. Allowing emotion restores coherence. Allowing does not mean indulging or amplifying. It means letting the sensation be present without narrative, without judgment, and without urgency to change it. When emotion is allowed to move through awareness, it completes its cycle. Its density reduces. The signal becomes cleaner. Notice what happens when you stop labeling emotion as a problem. Fear softens when it is seen. Sadness moves when it is acknowledged. Uncertainty loses its edge when it is not rushed. The body responds immediately to permission. Breath deepens. Muscles release. Attention gathers. These are not psychological tricks. They are biological responses to safety. Emotion is guidance precisely because it cannot lie. Thoughts can rationalize. Stories can justify. Emotion reflects the current state without interpretation. When you override it with logic or positivity, you lose your compass. When you listen to it without becoming it, direction becomes obvious. This is why forcing emotional positivity never creates alignment. Trying to feel better without allowing what is present creates internal contradiction. Reality responds to that contradiction accurately. When you allow yourself to feel what is here, even if it is uncomfortable, coherence returns. And when coherence returns, the direction forward becomes clear without analysis. You are not meant to eliminate contraction. You are meant to read it. Contraction points to where honesty is needed. Expansion confirms where truth is being lived. Neither is permanent. Both are informational. When you stop fighting this language, navigation becomes effortless. Let emotion be what it is. Not an identity. Not a threat. Not a weakness. Just information moving through awareness. As you allow it, the signal you broadcast becomes precise. And when the signal is precise, reality responds with clarity. Forcing is the most misunderstood habit in inner work. It looks like commitment, discipline, and strength on the surface, but underneath it introduces distortion into the signal you are broadcasting. Control, effort, and chasing all come from the same assumption, that the present moment is insufficient and must be overridden. Reality responds to that assumption exactly as it is given. When you try to control outcomes, the nervous system tightens. Breath becomes shallow. Attention narrows. Even if the mind is telling a positive story, the body is signaling urgency and lack. That signal carries far more weight than your thoughts. Reality does not hear your intention to be aligned. It hears the tension of trying to get somewhere else. Effort, when it comes from strain, creates noise. Not all effort is misaligned, but effort that is driven by fear of not having, not being, or not arriving in time fractures coherence. It splits awareness between where you are and where you think you need to be. That split weakens clarity. And when clarity weakens, responses from reality feel delayed, inconsistent, or resistant. Chasing is the clearest example. When you chase an outcome, you reinforce the identity of someone who is not yet there. The signal becomes future-oriented. Reality mirrors that by keeping the result out of reach. Not as punishment, but as correspondence. The mirror simply reflects the orientation you are holding. Calm receptivity operates from a different state entirely. It does not mean passivity or inaction. It means action that arises from alignment rather than urgency. When the nervous system is regulated, movement is precise. Choices feel obvious. There is no inner argument. You move when movement is required, and you wait when waiting is required, without labeling either as failure. Allowing restores flow because it removes contradiction. When you allow the present moment to be exactly what it is, attention gathers instead of scattering. Energy that was used to resist or control becomes available. The signal simplifies. And a simple signal is powerful. This is why forcing often produces the opposite result of what is intended. You push harder and feel further away. You try to fix yourself and feel more fragmented. You chase clarity and feel more confused. The mistake is not in wanting change. The mistake is in assuming that tension will get you there faster. Reality responds most cleanly to steadiness. When you are calm, not because you are suppressing emotion but because you are allowing it, alignment becomes effortless. Opportunities appear without being hunted. Answers arrive without being demanded. Timing adjusts without being managed. If you notice resistance in your life, look first at how much you are trying. Not what you are trying to achieve, but how. Is there pressure? Is there urgency? Is there a subtle belief that something must happen now for you to be okay? That belief is the noise. You do not need to stop acting. You need to stop forcing. Let action emerge from clarity instead of anxiety. Let movement come from presence instead of fear. That shift alone changes the signal completely. If this distinction is landing for you, take a moment to acknowledge it. You can make it tangible by declaring it. Leave a comment and write something simple like, "I recognize this," or "I'm ready to stop forcing." Not for anyone else, but to mark the moment you chose alignment over strain. Up to this point, everything has been about how reality responds and what stabilizes the signal. Now the shift moves inward, toward perception itself. Because none of the mechanics matter until something fundamental changes in how you experience your inner world. That change is the awakening of the observer. And it is not an idea you adopt. It is a function that comes online. The observer is what happens when awareness separates from automatic movement. Thoughts continue to arise. Emotions continue to move. Sensations continue to register. But they no longer define you. There is a subtle but decisive gap between what appears and what you are. This gap is not created by effort. It appears naturally when the nervous system becomes regulated enough to stop identifying with every signal it produces. Most people live merged with their inner activity. A thought appears and they are the thought. An emotion arises and they become the emotion. A reaction fires and it feels like identity. In that merged state, there is no space to choose. Life feels like something that happens to you because internally, everything happens automatically. The observer ends that loop. When the observer becomes active, you begin to notice thoughts instead of being carried by them. You see emotional waves instead of drowning in them. You feel reactions arise without immediately obeying them. This is not detachment or dissociation. It is intimacy without entanglement. Awareness remains close, present, and honest, but no longer fused. This shift is functional, not philosophical. The body responds immediately. Breath steadies. Muscles release. Attention stops scattering. The nervous system no longer has to defend against its own internal signals. That defense is what once consumed so much energy. When it stops, energy returns. Clarity appears. Unconscious repetition ends here. Not because you force different behavior, but because the mechanism that produced repetition has lost its fuel. Patterns repeat only when they are unseen. Once observed clearly, they no longer run on autopilot. A thought that is seen cannot control you. An emotion that is observed cannot dominate you. It can move, signal, and pass. The observer is not a separate part of you. It is you, without the noise. It is what remains when you are no longer reacting. This is why the shift feels quiet. There is no identity to announce it. No story to tell. No role to perform. Just presence watching itself operate. As this stabilizes, something important happens. You stop confusing intensity with truth. Strong emotions no longer feel more real than subtle ones. Loud thoughts no longer demand obedience. The inner world becomes readable instead of overwhelming. And because it is readable, it becomes workable without effort. This is the foundation of sovereignty. Not control over life, but clarity within yourself. When the observer is present, you are no longer shaped by every impulse. You can feel fear without being driven by it. You can feel desire without chasing it. You can feel discomfort without escaping it. That freedom is not emotional numbness. It is precision. From here, reality begins to behave differently, not because you are trying to influence it, but because you are no longer distorted. The mirror sharpens when the observer is awake. And once you have seen this separation, it cannot be unseen. This is the point where identity loosens and repetition loses its grip. When the observer stabilizes, reality changes its behavior. Not because something external has been altered, but because perception has become precise. What once felt random begins to reveal structure. What once felt chaotic begins to show pattern. Reality does not become a mirror at this point. It always was. What changes is your ability to read it. Before observation stabilized, experiences arrived as isolated events. One thing happened, then another, each seeming disconnected from the last. Coincidence felt like chance. Repetition felt like bad luck. Now, with awareness no longer fused to reaction, the connections become visible. You begin to see how inner states and outer events are linked with exactness. A thought arises and a conversation echoes it. A feeling you avoided appears as a situation that demands attention. A pattern you never questioned shows up again, but this time clearly enough that you cannot dismiss it. These are not signs meant to impress you. They are reflections meant to inform you. Reality becomes instructional once perception is clean. Coincidence disappears because coincidence requires blindness. It requires the inability to see causality operating through state. When awareness sharpens, timing becomes readable. You notice that events do not arrive randomly, but in response to what is active within you. Not what you think about occasionally, but what is stabilized emotionally and somatically. Synchronicity is not magic. It is alignment made visible. When inner state and outer environment begin to move together, the meeting points stand out. You think of something and encounter it. You hold a question quietly and an answer arrives without effort. You sense a direction and confirmation appears. These are not rewards. They are mirrors responding to clarity. As this continues, patterns you once blamed on circumstances become transparent. You see how certain emotional tones attract certain types of interactions. How unacknowledged tension repeats itself through similar challenges. How honesty inside dissolves complexity outside. This seeing is not meant to create self-blame. It is meant to restore authorship. Reality reflects what is carried, not to test you, but to show you. When fear is present, it appears as situations that demand courage. When avoidance is present, it appears as delays and blocks. When clarity is present, paths open without resistance. The mirror is neutral. It does not judge the image. It only reflects it accurately. With stabilized observation, you stop asking why things are happening and begin noticing what they reveal. Life shifts from something you endure into something you read. This does not make experiences painless, but it makes them intelligible. And what is intelligible no longer feels overwhelming. You also begin to notice that the mirror responds faster. The delay between inner shift and outer response shortens. Not because time has changed, but because distortion has reduced. When the signal is clear, the response does not need repetition to be noticed. One reflection is enough. This precision can feel unsettling at first. It removes the comfort of randomness. It shows you that nothing in your experience is separate from you. But it also removes helplessness. When you can read the mirror, you can adjust the state being reflected. Not by force, but by awareness. Reality becoming a mirror is not the end of the journey. It is the confirmation that perception has matured. From here, life no longer hides its logic. It reveals it. And what is revealed can no longer be ignored. Repetition only exists where something remains unseen. Patterns do not persist because they are powerful. They persist because they are familiar and unobserved. The moment awareness sees clearly, the loop loses its structure. Not slowly. Not through effort. Immediately. Because what was repeating was never the event itself, but the identity attached to it. Most people believe they must fix themselves to change their lives. Heal the past. Resolve every wound. Understand every reason. But repetition is not sustained by unresolved history. It is sustained by unconscious identification. As long as you believe a thought, emotion, or reaction is who you are, it will continue to shape your experience. When that identification loosens, the pattern collapses on its own. Recognition is the mechanism. Not analysis. Not correction. Not improvement. Recognition means seeing a pattern exactly as it is without trying to change it. The moment you see a reaction arise and realize you are not it, the reaction no longer has authority. It can appear, but it cannot command. And without command, it cannot repeat itself through action. This is why effort is unnecessary. Effort implies resistance. It implies that something must be forced into alignment. But awareness does not force. It illuminates. When something is fully illuminated, it loses the darkness it relied on to persist. Patterns feed on automaticity. Observation interrupts that automaticity without confrontation. You may notice this happening in simple ways. A familiar emotional response arises, but instead of acting on it, you see it. A thought that once dictated behavior appears, but now it feels transparent. A situation that would have triggered you feels strangely neutral. Nothing dramatic occurred. No breakthrough was announced. Yet something is different. The loop did not complete. Identity loosens here. Not because you are trying to let go of who you were, but because you can no longer believe it completely. You see the constructed nature of your reactions. You recognize how many of your behaviors were inherited, conditioned, or defensive. This recognition is not judgment. It is clarity. When identity loosens, effort dissolves. You are no longer trying to be different. You are simply no longer being pulled by what you are not. This is why repetition ends quietly. There is no victory moment. No celebration. The pattern simply stops appearing because there is nothing left to feed it. This is also why some people become uncomfortable at this stage. Repetition provided a sense of familiarity, even when it caused pain. When it ends, there is space. That space can feel empty if you are used to defining yourself through struggle. But it is not emptiness. It is freedom before reorganization. Recognition does not erase the past. It removes its authority. Memories may remain, but they no longer dictate the present. Emotional traces may arise, but they pass without shaping identity. You are no longer living from the story. You are living from awareness. This is the quiet power of seeing clearly. No fixing. No healing rituals. No effortful transformation. Just awareness recognizing what it was never meant to be. And once that recognition stabilizes, repetition has nowhere to return. Before going further, it helps to correct a common misunderstanding. Timelines are not destinations you move toward, and they are not created by events. They are selections made moment to moment based on state. What you experience next is not chosen by what you want, but by who you are being when the moment arrives. A timeline responds to identity, not intention. Identity here does not mean personality or story. It means the stable configuration of your nervous system, emotional tone, and level of presence. That configuration emits a vibration. And vibration is not mystical language. It is simply the overall pattern of coherence or fragmentation you are holding. Reality responds to that pattern with precision. This is why desire alone has no effect. Desire is often disconnected from state. You can want peace while broadcasting tension. You can want abundance while carrying contraction and fear. You can want connection while remaining guarded. Reality does not respond to the wanting. It responds to the guarding, the tension, the contraction. And so the timeline that unfolds reflects what is stabilized, not what is wished for. When identity shifts, timelines shift automatically. You do not move through time by effort. You tune into different sequences by becoming compatible with them. A calmer identity does not struggle for calmer experiences. It meets them naturally. A fragmented identity does not choose chaos intentionally. It simply resonates with it. This is why trying to force a new timeline never works. Forcing reinforces the old identity. It signals urgency, lack, and instability. The field reads that and maintains the same sequence. When identity changes quietly through awareness, the field has no reason to continue the old pattern. A different set of experiences becomes the only logical response. You may notice this already happening in small ways. Situations that once triggered you no longer carry the same charge. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel obvious. Certain paths lose their appeal without effort. Others become visible without being chased. This is not luck. It is compatibility shifting. Timelines do not punish or reward. They match. If your state is defensive, you enter timelines that require defense. If your state is avoidant, you enter timelines filled with delay. If your state is clear, you enter timelines where movement feels natural. There is no moral logic here. Only correspondence. Understanding this removes blame and fantasy at the same time. You are not being tested, and you are not being saved. You are being matched. This returns power to the only place it can exist, the present moment. You cannot change the past. You cannot control the future. But you can notice the identity you are inhabiting right now. The moment identity loosens from old definitions, timelines reorganize. You do not need to visualize a better future. You need to embody a more coherent present. When that happens, the future arranges itself without negotiation. This is why awareness is enough. When you see yourself clearly, identity shifts naturally. When identity shifts, vibration changes. And when vibration changes, the timeline you experience must follow. Not later. Not eventually. Immediately. There is a phase that appears after a timeline has loosened but before a new one fully forms. It is quiet, neutral, and often misunderstood. This is the silence between timelines. Nothing seems wrong, yet nothing seems to be moving forward either. For a mind conditioned to measure progress through activity, this space can feel uncomfortable. But it is not a problem. It is recalibration. When an old identity loses coherence, the structure that supported its timeline collapses. The patterns stop repeating. The familiar triggers lose charge. The old motivations fade. But the new configuration has not yet stabilized. During this interval, reality pauses its forward momentum, not to withhold, but to reorganize. The system is updating. This silence is not emptiness in the sense of loss. It is emptiness in the sense of cleared space. The field is removing outdated alignments and redistributing energy. The nervous system is adjusting to a new baseline. Attention is learning how to remain present without relying on old narratives. Nothing needs to be done here. In fact, doing too much disrupts the process. Forcing during this phase introduces interference. When you try to push movement before coherence has stabilized, you pull fragments of the old identity forward. That creates mixed signals. The field responds by slowing things down further, not as resistance, but as protection. It will not build a new structure on an unstable foundation. This is why impatience feels amplified during this phase. The mind senses the absence of familiar markers and tries to fill the gap. It looks for direction, certainty, reassurance. But certainty cannot be forced here. It must emerge from alignment. The more you try to escape the silence, the longer it lasts. The silence between timelines asks for one thing: stillness without interpretation. This does not mean withdrawal from life. It means allowing the neutral space to exist without labeling it as failure or stagnation. When you stop projecting meaning onto the pause, the nervous system settles. When the nervous system settles, coherence returns. And when coherence returns, movement resumes naturally. Many people mistake this phase as regression and return to old habits because they feel familiar. Familiarity feels safer than neutrality to an unregulated system. But those who remain present through this silence experience something different. A quiet clarity begins to form. Choices become obvious without analysis. Directions emerge without urgency. This phase is delicate because signals are amplified. Small actions carry disproportionate weight. Forcing a decision can redirect the timeline prematurely. Allowing clarity to emerge stabilizes the new trajectory. This is why patience here is not passive. It is precise. If you are experiencing a sense of pause, reduced motivation, or emotional neutrality without distress, you are not stuck. You are between structures. The old no longer fits, and the new is assembling. Trusting this process does not mean believing in something external. It means respecting the intelligence of regulation. Stay present. Let the silence complete its work. When the reorganization finishes, movement will not need to be chased. It will arrive as the only natural next step. As identity stabilizes and timelines reorganize, something else begins to happen without effort or negotiation. The outer world rearranges itself. Not through confrontation. Not through decision-making. But through compatibility. What stays and what leaves is no longer a matter of choice. It becomes a matter of resonance. Compatibility is not about preference. It is about frequency. Every relationship, opportunity, and environment interacts with the state you are holding. When that state shifts, the interaction changes automatically. Some connections no longer engage. Conversations feel thinner. Certain situations stop activating you. This is not rejection. It is misalignment becoming visible. Most people try to manage these changes mentally. They debate whether to let go. They wonder if they should hold on longer. They look for reasons and justifications. But compatibility does not respond to reasoning. It responds to state. When the inner configuration changes, the external configuration must adjust to match it. You may notice people drifting out of your life without conflict. Not because something went wrong, but because the energetic agreement expired. You may notice opportunities that once felt important losing their appeal. Not because they were bad, but because they no longer correspond to who you are now. At the same time, new connections may appear quietly, without pursuit, carrying a sense of ease you did not need to convince yourself of. This reorganization often feels impersonal, and that can be unsettling. The mind wants stories. It wants causes and conclusions. But resonance does not explain itself. It simply aligns or disengages. When you stop chasing outcomes, this process becomes smooth. When you chase, you introduce friction. Chasing implies lack. It signals that something essential is missing. That signal distorts compatibility. You may hold on to what no longer fits or pursue what is not ready to meet you. Allowing compatibility to operate requires trust in the intelligence of alignment. Not blind trust, but experiential trust built from noticing how ease replaces effort when resonance is present. The same applies to environments. Places that once energized you may begin to feel draining. Spaces that once felt foreign may suddenly feel natural. This is not random preference. It is your state interacting with the field. As coherence increases, sensitivity increases. You feel misalignment sooner. You recognize fit without needing proof. What is important to understand is that nothing is being taken from you. What leaves was only sustained by a previous version of you. When that version dissolves, the structure collapses. What remains is what can meet you where you are now. This process does not require confrontation or explanation. It happens through absence of friction. This is why forcing people to stay never works. It introduces contradiction. When compatibility is gone, effort replaces flow. When compatibility is present, flow requires no effort. The signal is unmistakable. Ease is the indicator. Allow this sorting to happen without resistance. You do not need to push anyone away. You do not need to chase anyone closer. Let resonance do what it does naturally. As alignment deepens, what stays will feel stable, supportive, and clear. What leaves will do so quietly. And in that quiet, the new configuration of your life begins to take shape without struggle. There is a subtle but decisive transition that happens here. Up until now, it may have felt as though you were accessing something, tuning into something, or aligning with something outside yourself. That phase is over. What is emerging now is embodiment. You are no longer orienting toward the signal. You are the signal. This realization does not arrive as excitement or empowerment. It arrives as simplicity. The sense that nothing needs to be adjusted, activated, or maintained. Presence itself is doing the work. The moment you stop trying to influence reality, you notice that it has already been responding to you all along. When presence stabilizes, it generates coherence automatically. You are no longer managing your state. You are inhabiting it. Breath moves naturally. Attention rests where it is without drifting. Emotions arise and pass without pulling identity with them. This is not a peak state. It is a grounded one. And grounded states are readable. Reality responds to presence because presence is unambiguous. There is no split between what you feel and what you allow yourself to feel. No distance between awareness and sensation. No internal argument about where you should be. That unity simplifies the signal so completely that response becomes immediate. This is why manifestation becomes irrelevant here. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing needs to be summoned. Outcomes organize themselves around coherence. Opportunities appear when they are compatible. Connections align when resonance is present. Decisions clarify when the noise is gone. You do not pull anything toward you. You stand still, and what matches you finds you. Identity changes at this point without declaration. You no longer define yourself through roles, goals, or stories. You define yourself through presence. And presence does not need reinforcement. It does not need validation. It does not need to be remembered. It is self-sustaining as long as you do not interfere with it. Interference usually comes in the form of trying to hold on. Trying to preserve the state. Trying to make it permanent. But presence is not something you possess. It is something you allow. The moment you try to grasp it, it becomes effort again. The moment you relax, it returns. As this stabilizes, you may notice a shift in how you relate to action. Action still happens, but it is no longer driven by anxiety or anticipation. It arises from clarity. There is no sense of urgency. No sense of falling behind. You move when movement is natural. You rest when rest is natural. Both are equally aligned. This is the point where reality can no longer ignore you, not because you demand attention, but because your signal is undeniable. There is no distortion for it to misread. Presence is the clearest broadcast available. You do not need to announce this shift. You do not need to prove it. You will recognize it in how little effort life begins to require. When presence is embodied, reality does not need to be managed. It responds because it must. Stability is what keeps a timeline open. Not effort. Not discipline. Not constant awareness. Stability is the condition where your internal state no longer contradicts itself. And the only thing that creates that condition is honesty. Perfection fractures coherence. The attempt to always be calm, always aligned, always regulated introduces strain. It asks the nervous system to perform rather than to be present. That performance creates a split between what is felt and what is allowed. Reality responds to that split by destabilizing outcomes, not to punish you, but because instability is what is being broadcast. Honesty removes the split. Honesty does not mean confessing or explaining. It means allowing what is actually present to be present without adjustment. If there is fear, it is allowed. If there is uncertainty, it is admitted. If there is clarity, it is not doubted. This allowance keeps the nervous system regulated because it no longer has to defend against itself. A regulated nervous system is not one that feels good all the time. It is one that can feel everything without collapsing. When emotion arises, it moves. When tension appears, it releases. When stillness arrives, it remains. There is no urgency to correct the state. That absence of urgency is stability. Timelines do not remain open because you hold a high vibration. They remain open because the signal is consistent. Consistency comes from honesty. When your internal state is allowed to change naturally without resistance, the signal stays coherent even as emotions fluctuate. Reality can work with that. It cannot work with suppression. This is why people often lose alignment after a breakthrough. They try to maintain the state. They monitor themselves. They correct their thoughts. They tighten. That tightening introduces noise. The timeline collapses not because they failed, but because they interfered with regulation. Stability is quieter than control. It feels unremarkable. There is no sense of achievement. Just a steady presence that does not waver dramatically in response to experience. From this state, timelines do not need maintenance. They sustain themselves because the signal does not fluctuate wildly. You do not need to stay in your best state. You need to stay in your true state. The moment you allow yourself to feel what is real, coherence returns automatically. That return does not require effort. It is the nervous system's natural response to safety. Safety is created by honesty. When nothing inside you is being rejected, the system relaxes. When the system relaxes, presence deepens. When presence deepens, reality remains responsive. This is the loop that sustains alignment. Stability is not fragile. It does not collapse because you feel something uncomfortable. It collapses when you deny what you feel. As long as honesty is intact, coherence repairs itself. And as long as coherence remains, the timeline you are inhabiting stays open without force, without vigilance, and without maintenance. There comes a point where the journey stops feeling like a process and starts feeling like recognition. Not recognition of a concept, but recognition of what you have always been. At this point, you are no longer trying to understand consciousness. You are no longer trying to align with reality. You realize that you are the awareness through which reality has been responding all along. This is why everything begins to feel automatic. Not effortless in a dramatic sense, but unforced. You are no longer sending mixed signals. There is no gap between what you feel and what you allow. No distance between perception and presence. Consciousness is no longer filtered through urgency, defense, or identity. It is simply here, aware of itself. From this state, reality has no choice but to respond. Not because you command it, but because alignment removes ambiguity. When the signal is clean, the response is immediate. When awareness is stable, outcomes organize themselves without delay. You do not need to ask whether you are on the right path. The path reveals itself through ease. This is the moment when seeking dissolves. You are no longer waiting for confirmation, signs, or reassurance. You do not look outward to see if you are doing it right. You feel the correctness internally, as a quiet steadiness that does not require validation. This is not confidence built on belief. It is certainty built on coherence. Reality no longer ignores you because there is nothing distorted to misread. Your presence is the message. Your state is the instruction. When you move, things move with you. When you pause, clarity deepens. When you speak, it carries weight without force. When you choose, the choice feels obvious before the mind explains it. You are not controlling outcomes. You are no longer trying to influence events. Influence implies separation. This state is integration. Consciousness recognizes itself in form, and the field responds because it is the same intelligence expressed differently. There is no negotiation here. Only correspondence. What once felt like manifestation now feels like alignment. What once felt like effort now feels like timing. What once felt like confusion now feels like information arriving exactly when needed. Not early. Not late. Precise. This precision is not special. It is natural when interference is gone. From here, the work is not to go higher, but to remain honest. Presence sustains itself when nothing inside you is being denied. You do not need to protect this state. You do not need to defend it. You simply live from it. And living from it continues to refine it. If you feel a quiet certainty as you reach this point, let it be enough. You are not becoming someone else. You are no longer operating as a fragment. You are consciousness aware of itself, moving through form without resistance. Reality responds because it recognizes itself in you. If this resonance feels real to you, stay within it. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it.